Well, it looks like this video is going to be a two-parter in regard to the TV shows and movie critics, should I say. But anyway, I'm trying to remember right where I left off at. With, like, say, like TV shows or movies, I can understand. I mean, there's nothing wrong with criticizing, say, a TV show or series, for example. If, for example, that you feel like that there's no character progression or development, and then equally the same thing with story progression. I mean, you feel like it's not going anywhere, or for example that there's no you feel that the pacing of the actual episodes in that particular season doesn't seem to be going anywhere, because also again slow progression. I mean, that's what you feel that is the problem. But as long as you, as I said before, that you're being constructive about what you're saying and not being negative and being negative and being critical on that particular thing, and then you're doing it with everything, and that's what I try to do. Because to me, as I said before, there's too many negative people out there. I mean, it's almost as if they want everything and anything to kind of fail. And as I said before, I mean, not everyone's gonna like it. Is gonna like everything, which is fine. But that's why when I try to do my reviews, as I said, I try to kind of explain and give them an explanation as to why I feel something does or doesn't work. Again, as I said in the first part of the video, I mean, writing an episode or a show or a movie, it's not an easy thing to do, because people sit there, they see the finished product on the screen and they think, oh, that must have been easy, and then not knowing that a lot of TV shows or even movies as well, they basically have to go through so many drafts until they fine-tune the actual story into what they want it to be, and it's not an easy thing. And as I said, I mean, I love sci-fi and I love comics, and I've been reading comics for years, and there's things that, ideas that I would love to be able to do, but I know the fact that I couldn't write a full movie. I couldn't write a full movie script, because for me, it just would be because I just don't have the know-how or the patience or to be able to write a treatment for a movie. Or even, for example, if you was going to write, let's say you're going to write a TV series, and it's maybe, say, it's got an average between of 8 and 15 episodes, and then you're doing it for maybe 3 or 4, maybe 6, 7, 8 seasons if you're lucky, and trying to top what you're doing and keep that writing consistently strong season after season, it's not an easy thing. Some people sit there and think, a show season can drop after 9 seasons or 10 seasons or 15, because it's simply that long that it's gone on for. But there's been shows where maybe half the season's been good, and then it's just got worse, and then it's been cancelled after the second season, or first season people kind of like it, and then the second season people feel as if that the show has dropped off, so it gets cancelled. So it's not really anything to do with how long the kind of show is. It's just a difficult thing in trying to keep up that consistency of a strong progressive story and characters. It's not an easy thing to kind of do. And I think sometimes those of us who just sit back in an armchair and we watch TV shows and movies in general, and even the same thing with video games, when they try to write a script, because obviously video games have a script because they have a story. I think people kind of seem to forget that it's not an easy thing to do. And then when you're just sitting there in the comfort of your home or a cinema watching a movie or streaming it or watching a TV series, right? You're seeing the actual end product of the actual particular product, but it's not an easy thing. And I think, so sometimes we kind of have to bear it in mind. And as I said before, you get some episodes are good in a show and some episodes are bad. I mean, you look at the Star Trek: The Next Generation, where it took its time in finding its feet, and then it eventually found its feet at the end of season 3, obviously, when they the part 1 of the best of both worlds. And obviously, the show needed a bit of tinkering to find its way, and eventually it did, and then the rest was history. Same thing with Deep Space Nine, where I would say that I did still enjoy the first 3 seasons, but for me, where Deep Space Nine really took off was the 3rd season, and then as soon as it got to the 4th season with the someone's car alarm. As soon as it got to the 4th season, when they started introducing the Worf into Deep Space Nine, and then right, see if we can walk past this because this is annoying. As soon as Worf got introduced into Deep Space Nine, and then the Klingons got brought into it, and then the whole thing to do with the Founders and the Dominion War, that's when it found its identity. And then, as I said before, you get some episodes that, as I said, that are just average. Or people sometimes call them a filler episodes. I mean, but you always get that. But sometimes when I see people just being, especially with like the advent of social media now, where people are allowed to say what they want without being responsible. Sometimes when I see all this negativity on certain things, but it's just, for me, I've just got no time for it, because for me it's just too negative. It's just not my kind of cup of tea. And sometimes when I see all these negative stuff on social media, I kind of just stay away from it, or I try to avoid it. And that's the reason why when you've got some of these new social media platforms popping up these days, I haven't joined them. All I have these days is like Twitter and like Facebook, and that's all I have now. I'm not really kind of interested, because all you see is just people just being completely kind of negative. As for me, I just want to enjoy TV shows and movies, and then yeah, some TV shows work, some movies and some TV shows and movies work, some don't, and it's just a factor of life. And then you just kind of just move on, but it's just too much with all this negativity, and it's just, I don't know, I think sometimes people just relished the negativity, or think that they're right. And as I've said, if you think you can do better, right, go out there and write, and then who knows, right, you can end up becoming the next was it George R. Martin, or was the guy that does the Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, and he's wrote his books, and the guy that did who wrote the Jack Reacher series, and then obviously now that's it's been a movie, and it's now a TV series, so it can be done. I mean, you've got like people like Ronald B. Moore, who was a Star Trek fan, wrote an episode, and then eventually ended up getting one foot of the door into the Star Trek franchise. Ended up writing for some of the Star Trek shows, and then ended up doing stuff like the reboot of Battlestar Galactica. So it can be done, but rather than some of these people sitting there and then constantly being negative, which is too much. I mean, you see it on YouTube with some of his also with his right-wing YouTubers again. It's the negativity where they get the hump if like in some of these shows, whether it's Lord of the Rings or House of Dragon, whether or not there's a person of colour in a role, or a female in a role. I mean, they get all making all these hell-bent negative videos on these issues, when what they should be making videos on is whether or not the episodes, the show or the episodes are actually any good. And that's what they choose to focus on, and it's the negative. And then when you sit there, and sometimes what I'm disappointed with YouTube is when the algorithms keep giving you those people their videos on my feed, and I'm not interested in seeing these negative stuff. As I said before, I've got no problems with criticism on anything, but it has to be constructive criticism, not criticism for the sake of just being negative, and then you're constantly doing it. It's not my thing. I mean, maybe it's just me that's got a bee in my bonnet about this kind of thing, but I just don't. I'm not, especially with what's going on in the world now, where there's been so many wars going on, people being killed, and we've had like things like, obviously we've had the pandemic that's gone on, and then we've still suffer. We've got the price increase where people now are struggling. In each of the countries, like over in the UK, people are now struggling because of the fact that price increase, the price increase when it comes to food and gas and energy prices, and people are struggling to survive and having to go to food banks. And then sometimes you need these things like TV shows and movies as a form of escapism, especially with what's going on in the world. And I know that during when obviously when we had the lockdown because of the pandemic, lots of people were watching streaming services because they needed to keep their brains, they wanted to be entertained, and that's what these shows are meant to do. As I said before, not all of them kind of get it right, but their intention isn't to sit there to fail. But I just wish people would show a little bit more positivity in this day and age, rather than sit there and then being negative. And again, as I said before, constructive criticism, not negative criticism. Anyway, I hope people liked my discussion on this particular subject matter. It's something that's key to my heart. And I'll speak to you all again soon. Take care, bye for now, and wherever you are in the world, please stay safe.